You're listening to The KYLO Show, the podcast where we talk about how to keep your love on no matter what and why whole healthy families are going to save the world. And it starts right now.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to The KYLO Show. We are excited to be back.
Yes, here we are.
We had a fun guest that just popped on last week.
I know.
Bernie Godwin.
A little trip from down under.
Which, I do love my Aussies.
Yeah.
So they're special to my heart.
Yeah. She had to get up early for that one, though.
Man, did she have to get 3 a.m., guys. 3 a.m. And it's not like going on an airplane where you're like, I'm going to wear sweats. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to do anything. I'm never going to see anyone on this flight that I know.
Yep.
No, she was ready to go, looking stunning.
Yeah.
3 a.m.
Bernie Godwin.
I don't know if she went to bed, but man,
she
showed up.
I feel bad.
I know.
Oh, gosh.
Changed
that sick feeling that you have getting up at 2 a.m. to get ready for your 3 a.m.
But all that to say, she did a fantastic job talking about her new book that you guys wrote together.
We did. We co-authored Loving Our Students on Purpose.
Which is great. I mean, more than ever, I think we are paying attention to the education system. And I would say globally, I know for the United States, there's a lot of parents that are looking at things in a way that they haven't before.
Yeah.
But Bernie's had this passion burning in her heart for a really long time. And so it's fun that she's gotten to actually put that into a book form and putting all her stories. I mean, probably even more stories than she shared, but she's got some really fun stories.
She's got some great stuff. She has invested her life as an educator, really, just as a supportive complement to a school system as a school social worker.
Mm-hmm.
And so she ends up on she's kind of the catcher's mitt of the school, like all the kids that make it past the janitor and the teachers and the coaches, boom, they end up in Bernie's room, and they're really upset. They've tumbled quite a ways to get to Bernie's room, and she's having outstanding success for years. And now she's a consultant, and she contracts with different school districts to do trainings and help teachers, and it's super fun to watch.
Yeah. I was reading something the other day, and it said, it was talking to parents, but it was saying, we're going to spend time with our kids one way or another. You can either spend time responding to their needs or responding to the behavior of a need that they are missing.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Bernie's really captured is paying attention to the need and then helping people get tools. And these educators, which again, I mean, homeschooling our kids for just a year and a half was, there's 3 and they're mine.
Yeah.
And wow, I'm frustrated, or how do I do this? And I've helped in all my kids' classes, parent, volunteer, and I've seen those kids that are acting out their behavior, their rough life, different things, and to be an educator to 1 to 30 is hard odds. So she's definitely bringing in some great hope to these teachers and anyone that's working with kids on how to see past all that crazy behavior and really help this kid come alive and find themselves.
Yeah. And offering a paradigm shift, to go, like you said, you can either deal with the need or the consequences of the unmet need.
Yeah.
And I was talking with a father the other day, and he said that somebody said to him, is your daughter having a problem that she's working through, or is she creating a problem for you? And he shifted to, oh my gosh, my beloved daughter is having a problem in life.
Yeah.
She needs my help. Is completely different than, oh, you want to create a problem for me? Because I'll create a problem right back for you, girl. And this, he has this war with his 7-year-old because he is big on winning and missing the whole plot.
Yeah.
So just that paradigm shift sets people who care in the position of being compassionate and responsive and effective instead of, I got into this to help, and now I feel like I'm at war.
Mm-hmm.
And that's parenting, that's teaching, that's coaching, that's all kinds of places where if you don't have the right paradigm, you won't bring the right response.
Mm-hmm. She really is helping solve this problem, which is the separation between home and school and anyone else that's helping this same person. Like this child has maybe 3 different outlets of help and support, but no one's communicating the same. No one's on the same page. No one's looking at each other as your strength, your strength, your strength.
Yeah.
And so she's figured out how to kind of unite the forces and bring everyone together if that's something they're willing to do. And that's her heart. That's what I kept hearing.
Totally. And, when we talk about whole, healthy families are going to save the world, the parent is the coach, but parents have been backing further and further and further away, and schools feel that.
Mm-hmm.
So schools take over more and more
yeah.
and more of the role of coach. And now the schools are teaching the parents, if the parents even involved,
Yeah.
how to deal with the child. Instead of the parents are teaching or directing the school, like, okay, here's what we can do. Here's a book. Here's a paradigm. And it I know teachers are probably cringing right now because they've been educated to understand child development and that sort of thing. But what they've not been educated in is the desires of the parents' culture.
Mm-hmm.
And here we go. We have this major breakdown in family culture because people get rid of community. They get rid of accountability. They get rid they're so busy, they're so tired, they have so many excuses that they're just happy to abdicate their role as leader of their child's development to somebody who gets paid to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of we're living in the consequence of falling asleep. And so this book is, I think, a super helpful resource to administrators, to teachers, to parents, to coaches, to youth pastors, to pastors. It could be a very, very helpful linchpin in bringing it all together and holding it all together.
Mm-hmm. Instead of having a tug of war of who's in charge or who gets final say, but we look at each other as partners. Obviously, I still very much believe that parent has the main role, but to be able to look at everyone that's invested in my kid and go, I see you as a strength, and I want to activate that, and I want to give permission to that, and I don't want to feel scared of that.
And to be able to get together with a teacher and have a common language, have a common goal.
Yeah.
Because it ends up being a war, like whose culture is going to be imposed on who, and who gets to make that decision. Because I actually have your child more of the day than you do. So why wouldn't I be the primary influencer? Well, because you're not the parent.
Yeah.
And that wrestling match right there has got to turn into a concerted effort instead of a tug of war.
Totally. I'm really excited about what she's just been fighting for and stewarding. I loved she shared kind of a glimpse into her first exposure to helping another student. She sounded like she was pretty young herself. That didn't go well, and then she took that leap of kind of exposing her heart, which is that vulnerability that I always talk about getting eye to eye with your kid and lowering that body language that I'm towering over you and removing the fear and creating safety. And that's what she did by exposing her heart to those young girls. And then the fact that she's gone on and is a school psychiatrist as well, or psychology, social work. That's what it is. And but it's just she's like followed in Bernie's footsteps, and to very different take than what it sounds like that young woman had experienced with school, and almost school had given up, and mom was desperate, but saw gold in Bernie, and Bernie said, "Okay, I'll try again."
That's quite an impact.
Yeah.
I mean, in the foreword of the book, I write about my experience with a teacher who believed in me,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and Mr. Dunch, and he just said he probably said a bunch of stuff to me, but what I remember
Yeah.
was one time he looked me in the eyes and he said, "Danny, there's something special about you. You're different. You're different than everyone else here. You got something special."
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at him like, what?
You want to tell me what that is?
I'm struggling. I'm going to fail out of school. I just know it. I think I was in 10th or 11th grade when he told me that. But it just landed like, I hope that's true.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, I hope that's true. And, that was 40-something years ago.
Yeah.
And when I got my master's degree, I went back to Trinity High School and I showed him.
Yeah.
I said, I just want to let you know that you said something that made such an impact. I may never recover from the encouragement that you gave me.
I think of Mr. Laux was a great teacher I had, and I was younger, but it is, talking with educators, the little bit I have done, I always say when you think about your teachers, there's two categories. There's all the ones that were, didn't make you feel safe, they were never happy, they were always falling short. And then there's the one that gave you the hope that you could do it.
Mm-hmm.
And what one do you want to be?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of the biggest things. And I worked in children's ministry, and I would say that to my children's workers, like, you don't know how long you're going to be in this kid's life, and you don't know who this kid is. It could be the next Billy Graham. That's what I would tell them all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know if the next Billy Graham is in your Sunday school.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you want them to experience from you? And that, the pursuit of connection, the priority there, what Bernie's been talking about, and that's on display.
Yeah.
And that's the priority. And so it makes a world of difference to this child.
And Mr. Dunch said to a kid who, not a lot of people know that my high school grade point average started with a point,
Yeah.
and I had zero value for education. Like, nobody in my family graduated from high school, went to college, any of that.
Mm-hmm.
So the value for even completing high school,
Yeah.
I was surrounded by friends. They all just dropped out. I had a smart girlfriend at the time, and it worked out for me, but it was not in my family culture to complete an education. And he said that to a kid who, I don't know if he knew I was going to, he may have said that because, Danny, I know you're going to drop out of high school, but I just don't want you to give up on life.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows? Who knows what he was thinking? But it obviously changed the course of so much of what you believed about yourself.
I think it just triggered a hope.
Mm-hmm.
I hope he's right.
Yeah. And that's what Bernie said over and over again, is wanting to give hope to the teachers that are in the classrooms that have those 30 kids that feel frustrated or overwhelmed, to the parents that feel frustrated and overwhelmed with the child that's having a struggle, or and I think that's what her message is about. It's obviously something that we talk about a lot here, so we're very passionate about, but she's pointing it towards education, which I thought she was genius for going a science route, because it's going to, especially with education, it's going to keep her in the game a lot longer than if she settled to not have that so loudly in there, or even faith forward. She definitely would have limited herself, unfortunately, but she didn't. She went the route of brain science, and how crucial that is to our love and connection component and success.
Yeah, it's like the KYLO 5 in the classroom.
Yeah.
That's what I heard her saying. And her language is very similar to ours. And so integrating loving on purpose and Bernie Godwin is a natural, because she's a student and just a really great supporter. And I loved her emphasis on character.
Yeah.
You know, I just loved that, okay, we've got to make school about character again, because it's only people with mature character that can even handle freedom. And adulthood is, so much of adulthood is managing your freedom well. And if we teach kids that it's somebody else's job, they're a victim of this, that, and the other thing, then they totally lose the plot.
Yeah.
You know, as young adults, and then create this life that's scarred up and bashed up, and like, oh gosh, we have come so far. I was mentioning the emphasis on sex education is just such a debacle. Like, somehow I have to teach you how to be really successfully selfish in your pleasure seeking. And you got to get it. Just sex education. Like, sex. How long we've gone without sex education in human history? I understand the value of it, but what it has
It's morphed to.
Yeah, it's perverted everything, and now pornography is off the chain. The overindulgence in sex outside of marriage is off the chain. The value for sex has been just diluted to pennies, because it's like printing money now. It's like, okay, you're just wrecking everything the way you're handling this. And the lack of attention on personal responsibility, high levels of respect, the value of connection and covenant relationships in community. No, it's all about warring over your little subgroup that gets you the most pleasure.
Yeah.
It's like, what a bummer.
It is a huge bummer. I thought it was interesting too. She was talking about, removing a punishment-based paradigm to a connection-based, and really how the, kind of prison systems are, and the modeling between that and the school systems, like how they there's an underlying theme of punishment is what we do.
Yeah.
So we've removed all this character, or we've developed character, but it's just selfish.
Yeah, self-preservation.
And I just her talking about the necessity for struggle.
Yep.
For there to be learned behavior and adjustment, and what are we protecting? What do I want to nurture? What do I don't want to nurture? I mean, all of these things I love, but it's just so much fun to hear her be able to connect things in a way and place them in education. Like, okay, are we looking over here? Are we looking over here? We've done it obviously in parenting and family, and we talk loudly over there, but she's fighting for it in the school system so that we can keep making great momentum in the other side of where they're living all the time in their schools. But that, removing struggle removes so much of the learning experience. And I say that all the time, but I mean, in school, I can see it because I want to just do your homework for you, or, I know that she was talking about 11th grade is going to be a hard one. I'm like, yeah, I just lived through 11th grade with our oldest one. And I looked at her and go, I don't know what you're going to do if you fail that class, but I have to be okay with you failing this class, because if I turn it into my problem, then I've removed this learning opportunity from you. And though it's going to suck, it's really only going to suck for you. It's not really going to suck for me, except for I feel like it mirrors and tells the world that I'm a bad parent because I let my kid fail. Well, I actually don't have any control over this, if you do your schoolwork or not. But I am giving into the facade of peer pressure of other parents.
Yeah, unfortunately, Lainey's not learning about this in 11th grade. She's had this her whole life. She very much is aware that, oh my
she
gosh,
didn't fail it.
when my mom lets go, that's actually going to be mine. And most parents that are doing a good job with that have kids that realize, okay, it's mine now. I better do this. But unfortunately, when you carry it the whole time and then you finally do just let go, the kid feels punished.
Yeah.
How dare you give me my life?
And you had the way that storm of being able to have good language, which is again what Bernie's equipping all these teachers and parents with
Yeah.
is good language, because that's what's so hard. You don't care. You want me to fail.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, I love how she said they go to the edge. We want them to have that struggle. We don't want them to fall off the cliff.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they can handle a little stumble, but we want them to be able to return back to joy, which I think is just that experience of feeling successful.
Well, this is the brain science.
Yeah.
The brain science is that life is really about traveling back to the attachment center of our brains, the place where we feel safe and loved and belong and that sort of thing. So I get out there, I stretch way out there to the brink of failure, but I know that I belong. I know that I'm dearly loved. I know that I'm safe and secure. Instead of I'm out here on the edge and I'm all by myself and I'm an animal and I better beat everybody that comes in contact with me. I better win and turn everybody into an enemy. That's what happens when you don't have the healthy attachment formation and development that comes from connection and community and being able to fail in the safety of a learning environment.
Yeah. Which some kids take longer on the edge of that cliff than others.
Yeah, some kids love it.
Yeah. And
I want war, not peace.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, here we go.
But Bernie's, I love it. She's really fought for helping find a balance and creating that safe place so that probably these kids that used to love that experience or used to believe that that's the only place where they belonged, that they belong in a place of safety and connection. And so she's really worked really hard on creating a system, creating a culture, and then now able to give it away to other educators, which is
and I think that a lot of the value for safety gets overinflated as much as the place and value for sex gets overinflated and emphasized to the point to where it becomes debilitating. Like, I want you to be so safe. Yeah. I want you to be so safe that you end up with no skills, self-concept, self-respect, immune system. We just annihilate all that by creating a world that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And as soon as we
get rid of the real world.
Yeah, as soon as we get rid of all these artificial surroundings, you're going to die. And so I set you up to be a weakling that is meat out there instead of somebody who is respectful, responsible, successful, and adding great strength to the society around them.
And somewhat resilient, which is, not my favorite word because I always feel like I struggle with resilience, but that's
not true.
It's just, that's the other thing we're trying to build more than ever is, we referenced Lainey getting feedback and she's got to go back the next day and not be crippled by the feedback.
Yeah.
And, the fun thing is, she was only working a month when she got feedback. I think it's just their timing. But she got to go back in and, she spent another week working. She's working almost full time. And her supervisor said, "Hey, I just want to let you know that we see that you've made immediate adjustments.
Here's more feedback.
But it's that, okay, I'm going to lean in instead of live on the cliff. I'm going to, this is stressing me out. Okay, what's the truth?
And it's hard to teach your child grit and resilience when they have a comfortable life.
In a bubble. That's really hard.
You have to manufacture it a little bit. Like, hey, here comes 4-H. Get out there with your pig and your lamb, and your lamb's 3 times the size of you. A lamb, 3 times the size of Addie, and she's out there wrestling that thing, and eventually she did it.
Yeah,
she accomplished it, but it was. It's grit and resilience that gets you out there in that pen every day, but it's your parents that set you up for all this failing. Like, there's so many things that go wrong today, sweetie. Get out there and do it. And she's like, I don't want to. I want to
It's
just
raining. I know. Here's
I
the
just
rain
want to
jacket.
watch this screen where nothing goes wrong. I'm unless the Wi-Fi goes out. Like, no, baby, that's not the real world. The real world's out there wrestling that lamb, because that's what it's going to be like being a parent. That's what it's going to like being an employee. That's what it's going to be like being a business owner, which you can see in Addie's eyes. She's kind of like, I'm going to own a business someday.
Yes.
Like, right. And it's because of some of the grit and resilience that was required of you in a safe learning environment.
Yeah. Well, Bernie, we are so proud of you and so honored to be running alongside of you and championing you. If you're a teacher, an educator, or a parent, and you listen to Bernie's episode and just even our recap, if something that you're interested in and want to get Bernie's book, Loving Your Students on Purpose, I would highly recommend that you do so. She's got it at godwinconsulting.com.au. That stands for Australia, so you need that part. It's really crucial.
AU, mate.
godwinconsulting.com.au, or you can look for it on Amazon. But she's got some great partners that are in there that's helped her just make this book phenomenal. And her heart is from, this cut from the same cloth here. We are very, very honored to have someone that's got this passion and just going to keep adding to our message that whole healthy families are going to save the world.
Yep.
So it's great. But we're going to jump into our questions.
Okay.
So we'll be back in just a minute. All right, so we're going to jump into our questions. If you have a question, you want to go to thekyloshow.com and enter that in. We have SpeakPipe, which is fun. You get to hear your own questions on the show.
Talking to the pipe.
Yep. If you've got questions or testimonies, always love to hear them. So please do that. But our first question today comes to us from Annie.
Hey, Danny and Brittany. Thank you so much for doing the KYLO show. I love listening to it and hearing all of your guys' wisdom. I have a question today and would just love to hear from each of you on what you think the number one thing that parents should be focusing on giving their kids to prepare them not just to survive, but to thrive in today's woke culture. Thank you so much for all you're doing to equip us to be powerful people.
How do we help our children? Which we just kind of talked about this. First thoughts, connection, always.
Yep, start there.
Connection is the key to influence. That's how I've always viewed this with our three kids. And then creating opportunity for, the struggle, the failure that has the attention where they have to figure out what they're going to do. Bernie mentioned it, and we've talked about it. It's that line where there's struggle, there's discomfort, but there is safety knowing that I'm right here. I love you. You can do it. I remember taking Lincoln on a ropes course thing that we did, and he refused to do it the first time. He was just riddled with fear, and I'm like, he did a much more intense one when he was 5, and this is nearly 4 years later. So I'm like, I don't really know why you're so scared, because this is way basic, but you're older.
That's where I got so scared.
But he had a great time. He was laughed, so I was really confused. I didn't expect it at all, and we ended up getting to go back there. But we had talked about, he was going with his friend this time, and I'm like, we don't have to bring it up, but I think that you should try it because I think you are going to have fun. And I just remember Ben really talking to him about facing his fears, but this is his decision to make. And it wasn't that we were going to be disappointed, but it was that we wanted to lean into a little bit of this fear and this stress and this struggle, and ask yourself, what do you want to be? What motivates you? Do you want fear to keep you from something, or are you okay with that? What do you feel like the fear is? So just asking a series of questions of what's that tension. And he got to just being afraid of the height of it, and if he couldn't do it, and he got scared, and Ben was able to bring security and truth, and safety of how the mechanisms all work. And because he trusts Ben so much from all the other experiences he's had, he was willing to lean in to the struggle. And then he had a great time. And then we did the higher level because he was having so much fun. But it's that, I just think that I'm so glad Ben didn't use any form of shame or anything in that moment. Not that he would, but I think that's when we remove that safety and connection piece, it gets harder to lead our kids in that struggle. So,
yeah, and the whole idea of connection being the priority, there it is. Like if he's disconnected in that moment, Lincoln shuts down even harder.
Yep.
But he's like, "Come on, son. I'm with you. You got this. Let me lead you." And he actually faces his fear in order to protect the connection that's so important to him. He faces his fear and moves through that situation, and and then he comes out the other side like, "Look what I did.
Totally.
I come like that's exactly right. Look what you did. Look what you accomplished. Way to go." I think the test of strengthening your child comes out of your own strength. So a bunch of facing your dragons, facing your responsibilities, growing and maturing in your life, you can't really give away what you don't have. And so parents that aren't successful in doing this in their own lives will not lead other people in it. Yeah. You can talk about it. You can say how important it is. You can say coulda, woulda, shoulda. You can do all that stuff. But if you don't break off a part of your life and feed it to your kids, they'll just wonder what you're talking about. So they'll want to do it, and you'll want to do it.
Yeah.
But if you didn't face your dragons, if you didn't take responsibility, if you didn't repent where it was necessary and clean up your mess, then it's like trying to give a tour to Budapest that you've never been to, but you read about it. It's not quite the same, and we're probably going to get lost.
Yeah. I know that just the other day, I asked Addie to look for something for me in the laundry room. It was a pair of shorts that I had down there. And I'm like, can you go find my black shorts? And she comes out. She's like, I can't find them. And she's been a little distracted with, can I have your phone? Can I do this? And then she's like, asked me that right afterwards. I said, well, how hard did you actually look to help me? And she's like, I can't find them. I'm like, okay, whatever. And so we move on. And then I find them in the laundry basket upstairs. So they weren't even down there. Oh. And I go, okay. And I could have left it and been like, whatever, not a big deal. But I knew that, especially since I said, I don't think you're looking very hard. I'm like, oh, this is the opportunity right here where I can either lead or I can dismiss an opportunity. And so I went down and I said, hey, I just want to say I'm sorry. I set you up for failure because my shorts aren't even down there. And you probably did look hard, and I just made a total judgment call on what I thought you did and the effort you put in, which she was already in a not great mood before that moment. So just made
see how you are.
We didn't quite go there, but I was prepared for that. I said, I just wanted to tell you I'm sorry. And she's like, it's okay. But it's just those moments, it's kind of like what you do in secret and what you do in public. And for her, I'm like, I feel like I have to be willing to have that moment so that she will have the opportunity to have that moment with me.
And that's quite a bit of respect.
Yeah.
That you would pay to a child, and yet it's the family culture. It's not pretend, it's real. It's like, whoa, this relationship is this important to me. I'm going to take this kind of care of it.
Yeah. And that's kind of how I see the connection piece is it, there's levels of connection that are really loud and that are quiet, but they're still investments.
Mm-hmm.
So that's don't be afraid to say I'm sorry. It's
Mm-hmm.
basically what I'm getting at.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it is a good, humbling experience for parents, and it's never fun, but our kids are more gracious than especially when we practice it. I think they're a bit more gracious. So
Yeah.
awesome. All right. Our next question comes to us from Elle.
Hi, Danny and Brittany. I absolutely love the KYLO show. And one of my favorite aspects of it is to experience just the healthy father-daughter dynamic that you guys have. I love the relationship that you guys have, and it is so, so beautiful. So my question is, would you share some of the stories of how you guys have cultivated that really healthy relationship? And maybe some stories about some of the hard times that you've walked through in order to get to where you are now.
Hi, I mean, I'm sure there's hard times in childhood. I mean, as far as childhood memories, I remember, you know, more so the introducing love and logic tools, kind of changing that relationship. And mom and I would fight like crazy. So I just geared up for battle with mom in that season. I think with you in that season, it felt different. I didn't have to go to battle, and I actually felt sad when I had made a mess because it felt different. Where mama was like, war, very different. But, and then eventually it felt more like that with mom. But I think that there was lots of, you did a really good job of pursuing with us, in different ways. I for your 60th birthday, I had a song written for you, which you really loved, and we won't talk about. But, so I think that there's lots of memories of that pursuit, which we've talked about before, is the connection piece. So, I mean, that's from my perspective there. I think really big older moments as a teenager. If you've heard the story, it's in Loving Your Kids on Purpose, where, I walk away from the Lord and I just struggle finding who I was. I think that season of being able to hold on to, this wild kite caught in a storm. That's the best way I can think of, is your willingness to not just shut down my very emotionally driven needs of a 16-year-old to this terrifying option, I'm sure, of having my own 16-year-old. I'm like, so not fun. But I think those were harder moments for sure. I mean, that I always cry when I tell my testimony of when I come back in from just kind of coming back to the Lord, and you just standing there in the back of the sanctuary. And always tell people, I'm going to cry now, but I always tell people that feels like one of the first embraces that we had in like 4 months of me. Just I was the keeping distance as the goal. I wouldn't say that you and mom did that. Mom did a really great job in that season as well. Just pursuing me in different ways, my love languages. And I think the other hard struggle that we had was when I got married.
That's when it came to my mind.
Yeah.
You made an appointment. It's a year after you got married, you made an appointment with me. I'm like, oh, I'm in so much trouble. My daughter's made an appointment with me. I walk in, there you are sitting there. Hi, honey. Daddy? What?
Yeah.
You haven't taken me on a date in a year. I said, honey, you're married. You have a husband now.
Yeah.
Well, that shouldn't matter. Okay, I'm kind of confused right now, but all right. And it was just a connection moment. I think I always wanted to be a dad since I was a little tiny boy. That was my biggest goal, my biggest Yeah, it was probably my biggest goal. I don't know that I thought about being a husband as much as I thought about being a father.
Hmm.
And I just wanted to do such a good job being a dad. And then in the journey, I learned that you have to be a good husband. You have to be a good husband. You want to be a good father.
Through that first.
You have to be a good husband. I was like, oh gosh. And so I do think that, we're living in the fruit of me having some really great fathers around me that I could learn, and some of them did a great job the whole time. Some of them were coming back from in the fourth quarter. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm down by 5 touchdowns. But I had some great examples after I was born again, and I came into a really great community of people. I credit Bill Johnson again and again in my life, but he gave me I watched him, the way he interacted with his kids, how much he loved his kids, and I'm like,
Yeah.
there it is right there.
Mm-hmm.
That right there, I'm gonna give me some of that right there.
Yeah.
So it took a little bit of unlearning what I'd been taught as yellow truck, red truck, all that stuff, and loving our kids. But once I figured out, okay, I found the toolbox
Mm-hmm.
that I needed to build what I wanted to live in one day.
Yeah.
That felt like with all my heart, I'm going to build that.
Mm-hmm.
And, Mom and I we're coming off our 38th wedding anniversary. You're coming off your 37th birthday, which means you've been pretty much with us the whole time.
whole
I think we
guys.
had like 3 months without you. And it, so I feel like my whole life I've been getting to do what I wanted to do, as a family man.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just say that. I've always wanted to be a family man.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
That's the sappy end to our our tech is just over here crying. She loves this part. Oh, well, there you go. There's so many more stories we could share, but that's where we'll end it for questions. But we do have a testimony that came in through email. So one of our team members is going to read that, but it was a really fun one. So we wanted to make sure to share it. They're going to go ahead and read that to you. So here's the testimony.
Hey, Danny and Brittany, we received this email testimony from a listener, and it was too good not to share on the KYLO show. So here we go. In 2009, I couldn't understand why I had the urge to throw something every time I got mad. I had a rough upbringing, was divorced from an abusive husband, and was now married to my second. It frustrated me that I had this horrible habit and asked God to reveal the reason. My grandmother on her deathbed in 2009 was reminiscing about me. She said, "When you were a baby and a toddler, you tried to tell us what you wanted, but you couldn't speak until you were 3. We didn't know you were deaf yet. If we didn't listen to you or understand what you wanted, you would get so mad and throw something towards the thing you wanted. That was it. The Lord highlighted it. Every time I didn't feel listened to or validated, I had the urge to throw something. Unfortunately, I had a great chucking arm. My pastor introduced me to the KYLO books and the videos. I even had the privilege to hear you teach a few times. I became very intentional about pursuing my healing. I reread the KYLO book, watched the videos, and have gone over my notes from listening to you in person many times. I worked hard at applying such wisdom. My favorite was learning the I messages. I now have healthy tools to help in conflict and work to understand the other person. I'm still a work in progress, and I'm applying the fact that I'm not a victim. Everyone's not a villain, and I don't have to rescue everyone. I am available to help those who have a problem and want help. It's been a little over 10 years since I've thrown anything when I got mad. Being deaf is no longer an excuse. The best part is now my young adult kids watch me transform, and they now are being intentional towards their emotional and spiritual health. They are even using iMessages now too. God is so good. I always recommend KYLO to anyone who will listen. Thank you so much.
Yay.
Yep. That's fun.
Wow, that's a journey there.
Yeah. Big journey. I mean, I love that she's got 10 years since she's thrown anything. It's kind of like a...
Since I had a drink.
She's got her coin of success that's marking, I broke through this...
Destructive
behavior that was limiting my influence, probably her connection levels. And she's on the other side going, look, my kids are now trusting me and we're growing together. So that's a beautiful story right there.
It really speaks to the deep stuff in our human development in early childhood. There you have it right there. That's why, I think Jesus said, better to have a millstone tied around your head and thrown into the deep end of the ocean than to mess with this part of a kid. Mm. And it's because of these kinds of things. They're so potent, so much influence and impact gets wired into us. And so doing a good job with our little ones it's not just a privilege, but it's a pretty giant responsibility to set them up and give them whole healthy to look at, so that they can imitate, because they will imitate, and or they will find a dysfunction to get their needs met if there's no functional way to get their needs met.
I love it. It's a great testimony and success of family growing, which is what our heart here is at the KYLO Show, is that whole healthy families are going to save the world. So thanks so much for listening. And again, if you're interested in Bernie's book, you want to go ahead and check that out, Loving Your Students on Purpose. You can get that on Amazon or godwinconsulting.com.au. And we will see you next time on the KYLO Show.
Thanks for listening. Never miss an episode of The KYLO Show by subscribing to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or watch us on the Loving on Purpose YouTube channel. Don't forget to submit your questions and testimonies to thekyloshow.com. The KYLO Show is produced by Allie Armerding, co-produced by Ashley Beck and Anna Hill, sound engineered and edited by Taylor Silk, and show promoter Christian Zamora. Don't forget, whole healthy families gonna save the world.